All right, here's part two, right? So the thing is, as a Christian, I knew that our main job was to seek and save the lost, right? We were to be fishers of men. That's one of the scriptures. That was another scripture that you eventually read. You'd be fishers of men. So here we are now in 2014. I've changed my job schedule and everything, and for that whole year, I hadn't really been in any studies. I think the last study I had was with a coworker named Roy, right? And that was like maybe a year before. He also worked with me on night shift, and we studied we went to two studies. I believe we went through two studies, and then eventually he told me that he didn't want to, he wanted to do what he wanted to do. He didn't want to have to get baptized and have to do, whatever, have to follow any rules or anything. He wanted to do what he wanted to do, and basically he still believed in God and whatever. Okay, fine. But since then, that was my last study, right? So that was maybe 2013. It's 2017, right? So I haven't had any studies since then. And I had to mention that none of my brothers were having any studies, at least the ones that are close to me. Dion, LaTroy, Tyrone, whoever else I can think of. I can't think of everybody else, but none of us were really in any studies with anybody, and that was the whole purpose of being a Christian, was to go out and be fishers of men. We were supposed to be studying with other men. Now, what I noticed that year that I took off, like I would come to church afterward because we had church later on downtown, and the service would end around 1 o'clock or so, 12:30, whatever. And sometimes I would get off of work early and come pick up my wife, right? And I'd see everybody and be cool, everybody cool, but nobody really contacted me. Nobody really came to contact me. Nobody called me on the phone, see how I was doing spiritually, none of that. On top of that, my best friend Dion, never really, we talked, we would talk every other day. We would talk 3 or 4 times a week, but we never really talked about anything spiritually, right? We never challenged one another. That's something that usually happens when people get comfortable. That's a normal thing. But what I don't know if I had an issue with it or anything, but I don't think he saw what was happening with me, I guess. When we knew each other so well, I could tell by how he would talk or inclination in his voice or whatever that when something was wrong. There was a time where he wasn't doing real well with his marriage, and I convinced him to go see a counselor. That his wife had already set up appointments with a counselor, and he didn't want to do it, but I actually talked him into doing it. It was a good idea because me and my wife had went to counseling, and it was good for us, right? So I convinced him to do it. Now I'm losing my train of thought. Please excuse me, it's late, right? I'm trying to do this now. Maybe I'll just redo it. Who knows? But yeah. So we're supposed to be fishers of men, and we're supposed to. That was our purpose for all of us. Now the women might do it better, differently. The church is always outweighed by the women, 3-1 to the men. The women are talkative. That's what women do. They talk. Men don't talk. We're motivated by different things. So it's more difficult, right? Until to get somebody who's ready to do it or whatever. But it's a little bit more difficult for men. And I felt like we had lost that purpose. Not just with getting new members or new men into our ministry, but we weren't even holding our own men accountable. We're not even sharpening iron. Iron sharpens iron, right? That's I think that's in Psalms or Proverbs. It's Psalms or Proverbs, either one. So we weren't really even doing that. And so I had an epiphany, what was my purpose? If we're not doing our purpose, I'm not doing it, and my other brothers ain't doing it, what's the point, right? So that realization kind of sunk into my brain, along with other little things. There were other processes too before that, and I'll explain that in the third part. Right, here we go.